Between knowing a love that's enduring through test of time versus one that could be served on golden platter, which would be more fulfilling? If wishes they say were horses, then it might be so that Delaney's life and that of her college boyfriend might consider eating on different plates. Could their love be truly enduring and still fulfilling? This story will reveal what's been served to both. But before we jump in, let me hear from you. Tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The morning bell chimed at Café Beignet, and Delaney Rhodes wiped down the last table of her double shift. 27 years old, with honey-colored hair that refused to stay pinned back and a smile that could charm tips from stone-broke college students, she moved through the New Orleans diner like she owned the place. She didn't, but her confidence suggested otherwise. The lunch rush had been brutal. Her feet ached in shoes held together with determination and electrical tape. Still, she hummed while counting her tips, $43 and some change. Not enough to cover her mother's medication, but enough to keep the lights on another week. Her phone buzzed. Uncle Merrill's name flashed on the cracked screen. "Del, honey, I need you to meet someone. Can you swing by the hotel on Canal Street around 6? Dr. Merrill Payne had been her father figure since she was 12, when her mother's cancer first appeared. He'd paid for Delaney's nursing prerequisites before she switched to social work, never asking for repayment. If Uncle Merrill needed something, she'd make it happen. The Roosevelt Hotel lobby gleamed with marble and crystal. Delaney felt underdressed in her waitress uniform, still smelling faintly of coffee and jambalaya. She spotted her uncle's silver hair near the elevator bank, standing beside a man in a tailored navy suit. The stranger was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair and the kind of sharp jawline that belonged on magazine covers. His eyes were steel gray, the color of storm clouds over Lake Pontchartrain. When he looked at her, she felt measured and catalogued. "Delaney, this is Hale Carmichael," her uncle said, his usual warmth strained. "We need to discuss something important." They sat in the hotel bar. Hale ordered whiskey neat. Delaney asked for sweet tea, mostly to watch his expression shift at her accent. "Your uncle has been my father's physician for 30 years, Hale began, his voice carrying the crisp authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "My family owes him considerable gratitude." Delaney glanced at Uncle Merrill, who suddenly seemed fascinated by his coffee cup. "I'm sure you're both lovely people," she said, "but I've got to get home. My shift starts early tomorrow." "I need you to marry me," Hale said. The words hung in the air like smoke from a dying cigarette. Delaney blinked twice, then laughed, a rich, genuine sound that turned heads at nearby tables. "Well, that's the strangest pickup line I've heard all week. And I work in the French Quarter, so that's saying something." Hale didn't smile. He pulled out a leather portfolio and slid a document across the table. "This is a contract. 6 months. Public marriage. All expenses covered. $3 million upon completion." Delaney's laughter died. She read the first page, then the second. Legal language swam before her eyes, but the numbers were clear enough. "This is insane." "My father is dying," Hale said quietly. "He's requiring certain conditions before he'll approve a merger that's taken me 5 years to negotiate. One of those conditions involves you." "Me? I serve coffee for a living. I mentor teenage girls at the community center on weekends. I drive a car held together with prayer and duct tape. What could your billionaire father possibly want with me?" Uncle Merrill cleared his throat. "Edwin Carmichael has always been particular about character. He believes marriage indicates stability. Hale needs to be married by Monday to secure the deal. So hire an actress. Get a Vegas chapel. This doesn't require me." Hale's gray eyes never left her face. "My father specifically requested you." He's read your uncle's letters about your volunteer work, your education, your character. He wants someone real. Delaney stood, her chair scraping against marble. Real doesn't mean available. I have a life here. A boyfriend. People who depend on me. Trace Mullen, Hale said. Your college boyfriend. The carpenter who helped pay your tuition. Ice formed in Delaney's stomach. How do you know about Trace? I know about your mother's medical bills. The notice on her house. Your student loans. The nonprofit you're trying to start for at-risk girls. Hale's voice remained level but not unkind. I can solve all of that. Some problems don't need solving by strangers. She walked away, her heels clicking against marble like a countdown timer. 2 days later, Hale appeared at Café Beignet during the afternoon lull. He ordered black coffee and sat in her section, patient as a hunter. $5 million, he said when she refilled his cup. Still no. Not for you. For Trace. Delaney's hand trembled, coffee splashing onto the saucer. Excuse me? $5 million. In exchange for him signing a non-disclosure agreement and stepping aside for 6 months. He gets a clean start, debt-free. You get the marriage contract. Everyone benefits. Trace would never. I already spoke with him. The words hit like a physical blow. Delaney set down the coffee pot before she dropped it. He said he needed time to think, Hale continued. That was yesterday afternoon. Delaney's phone buzzed. A text from Trace. Can we talk tonight? Important. Her hands went numb. That evening, Trace sat on her apartment steps, his carpenter's hands folded between his knees. He'd always been quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who measured twice and cut once. But tonight he wouldn't meet her eyes. Del, I've been thinking about us. About everything. Hale Carmichael came to see you. Trace nodded slowly. He did. And? I signed the papers this morning. The words fell between them like stones down a well. Delaney felt something fundamental shift inside her chest. Not heartbreak exactly, but the recognition that a chapter was ending whether she wanted it to or not. Why? Trace finally looked at her, his brown eyes sad but resolved. Because you deserve more than watching me struggle to give you less than you need. Because that money can set both of us free to become who we're supposed to be. I never asked you to be anything different. I know. But I asked myself to be. Every day. He stood, brushing dust from his jeans. I'll always love you, Delaware. But maybe loving someone means knowing when to let them go. He kissed her forehead, soft and final, then walked away down the narrow street. The next morning, Delaney stared at Hale's contract spread across her kitchen table. Her mother's eviction notice lay beside it, red ink bright as a warning. She picked up a pen and signed her name in careful cursive. The wedding took place at City Hall in Manhattan on a Tuesday morning. Delaney wore a simple cream dress she'd bought the day before. Hale wore charcoal gray. The photographer captured them signing papers, exchanging rings, sharing a brief kiss that tasted like obligation and coffee. The photos appeared online within hours. The headlines wrote themselves. Billionaire Hale Carmichael marries mystery woman in surprise ceremony. Hale's penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a building that scraped the belly of clouds. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Central Park and the Hudson River. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum, beautiful, expensive, and completely untouchable. Delaney set her single suitcase in the guest bedroom and surveyed her temporary kingdom. Marble countertops, imported rugs, a wine collection worth more than most people's houses. It felt like living inside a magazine spread. Within a week, she'd made her mark. Yellow slippers appeared by the front door. The kitchen smelled of cayenne and paprika. She left jazz playing on the sound system and cooked jambalaya in his pristine pots, humming off-key while onions sizzled. Hale returned from work each evening to find his ordered world subtly rearranged. Music where there had been silence. Laughter from phone calls with her mother. The scent of real food instead of takeout containers. "Must you play music at such volume?" he asked one Thursday, loosening his tie. "Must you speak like a Victorian gentleman?" she replied, not looking up from her laptop where she was reviewing grant applications for her nonprofit. Their first real argument happened over breakfast. Hale had spreadsheets covering the dining table. Merger documents, financial projections, market analyses. Delaney moved them to make room for her coffee and toast. "Those are confidential corporate documents," he said, his voice tight. "These are coffee rings from my mug," she replied, pointing to the table. "We both leave marks." He stared at her. This woman who treated his billion-dollar merger like a minor inconvenience. Something flickered in his gray eyes. Irritation, yes, but something else. Interest. The next week, his board of directors insisted on a photo opportunity. Hale and his new wife, supporting a children's literacy program. Good publicity for the merger. Delaney appeared in a burgundy dress that highlighted her curves and her confidence. The board chair, a thin man with dead eyes, explained the photo concept. "We need you to look adoring," he told Delaney. Hand on his arm, gazing up lovingly. Standard political wife positioning. "I don't do standard," Delaney said. "And I'm not his political wife. I'm his actual wife. For the purposes of this photo. For the purposes of this photo, I'll stand where I'm comfortable and smile when I feel like it. If you want an actress, hire one. If you want me, you get me." The board chair's face reddened. Hale stepped forward, his hand finding the small of Delaney's back. "We'll work with what feels natural," he said, his voice carrying quiet authority. The photos were unconventional. Delaney looked directly at the camera, her smile genuine but unmanaged. Hale watched her instead of the lens, something unguarded in his expression. The pictures went viral. "Real love in a fake world," read one headline. That evening they stood on the penthouse rooftop watching steam rise from the city below. The autumn air bit at their skin. Delaney wore one of his sweaters, drowning in cashmere. "Your board chair thinks I'm trouble," she said. "My board chair thinks everything is trouble. Including happiness." She glanced at him. "Are you happy?" Hale considered the question like he was calculating quarterly returns. "I'm less unhappy than I expected to be. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." He smiled, actually smiled, and something shifted between them. The air grew thicker, charged with possibility. 3 weeks later, they found themselves sharing the living room couch on a Sunday afternoon. Hale had abandoned his laptop. Delaney had closed her book. She was eating a mango, juice running down her fingers. "That's going to stain the upholstery," he said. "Everything worthwhile leaves stains," she replied, offering him a slice. He accepted it, their fingers brushing. The touch lasted longer than necessary. She didn't pull away. They sat in comfortable silence, watching autumn lights slant through the windows. Outside, the city hummed its eternal song. Inside, something new was beginning to grow, tentative and unexpected like wildflowers in sidewalk cracks. The call came on a Wednesday morning. Mrs. Boudreau from the neighborhood had passed in her sleep. She'd been 93, sharp as a tack, and one of the first people to believe in Delaney's dreams of starting a nonprofit. "I need to go home," Delaney told Hale over breakfast. "For the funeral." He nodded, already reaching for his phone. "I'll have the jet prepared. I can fly commercial." "You can. But you don't have to." New Orleans welcomed her back with humidity and the smell of café au lait. The funeral was held at St. Augustine, the church where Mrs. Boudreau had played piano for 60 years. Delaney wore black and tried not to cry during the hymns. After the service, she walked through the French Quarter, needing air and movement. The tourists were thick as molasses, cameras clicking at every wrought iron balcony. She ducked into a side street and nearly collided with a familiar figure. Trace looked different. Leaner, sun-darkened, with bare feet and worn jeans. His hair was longer, tied back with a piece of leather cord. He moved like someone who'd found his center. Delaware. His voice carried no surprise, as if he'd been expecting her. Trace. Her heart did something complicated, not the flutter of old attraction but the deep recognition of shared history. They walked to a nearby cafe without discussing it. He ordered herbal tea. She asked for coffee with chicory, needing something that tasted like home. I heard you got married, he said. I heard you got rich. He laughed, the sound lighter than she remembered. I got free. There's a difference. What are you doing now? Teaching yoga at the community center. Growing vegetables. Learning to paint watercolors badly. He sipped his tea. I used some of the money to fix up my mother's house. Built her a garden with lemon trees. And the rest. Invested in small businesses around the neighborhood. A bakery, a bookstore, 2 families starting food trucks. Money grows better when it's shared. Delaney studied his face, searching for bitterness or regret. She found only peace. Do you hate me? She asked. For what? For taking his offer. For marrying him. Trace leaned back in his chair, his eyes warm. Del, I didn't lose you. I freed you. Just didn't realize I was setting myself free too. Tears surprised her, hot and sudden. He reached across the table and took her hand. You were always meant for bigger things than what I could offer, he said. I just had to get out of your way so you could find them. They talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing. His mother's health, her nonprofit plans, the weird joy of having enough money to stop worrying about money. When the afternoon light began to slant golden through the cafe windows, Trace stood to leave. Take care of yourself, Delaware. And take care of him too. Something tells me he needs it more than he knows. Before she could respond, he pressed something into her palm. A smooth river stone painted with 3 words in careful blue letters. Let love land. She held it all the way back to New York. That night, she found Hale in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, attempting to make coffee. He'd managed to coat the marble countertops with grounds. How was the funeral? He asked. Sad. Beautiful. Right. She set her purse on the counter and pulled out the painted stone. I saw Trace. Hale's hand stilled on the coffee machine. How is he? Happy. Really happy. He said to tell you thank you. For what? For giving him the chance to become who he was supposed to be. Hale studied her face, searching for signs of lingering attachment. Instead, he found something else. Clarity, resolution, the look of someone who'd made peace with the past. They ended up sitting on the kitchen floor, backs against the marble cabinet, bare feet stretched out on the heated tiles. Delaney ate leftover mango with her fingers. Hale watched her, his tie loosened, his carefully maintained composure slipping. I thought marrying you was the cost of doing business, he said finally. Turned out, loving you might be the best decision I never calculated. The words hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Delaney wiped mango juice from her fingers and looked at him. Really looked at him. Behind the expensive clothes and careful control, she saw something she recognized. A man trying to figure out how to be real in a world that rewarded performance. You love me? She asked. I'm afraid I might. She kissed him then, soft and certain. He tasted like possibility and coffee grounds. When they broke apart, she smiled. Good. Because I'm afraid I might love you back. The story broke on a Tuesday morning in the New York Post. Billionaire's bride, marriage contract exposed. The article had most of the details. The 6-month timeline, the financial arrangements, even her background as a waitress from New Orleans. What it didn't have was the truth about Trace's payout, painting him instead as a heartbroken lover abandoned for money. Delaney became the gold digger who'd traded true love for a billionaire's bank account. The story went viral within hours. #GoldDiggerBride trended on social media. Her nonprofit's website crashed from traffic, but the donations stopped completely. News vans appeared outside her mother's house in New Orleans. At the community center where Delaney volunteered, teenage girls who'd once looked up to her now whispered and pointed. One of them, 16-year-old Sophie, confronted her directly. "Is it true? Did you really marry him for money?" Delaney sat down beside Sophie on the center's worn couch, choosing her words carefully. "I married him because I thought it would solve problems. But life isn't a business transaction, Sophie. Real love doesn't work that way." "So you don't love him?" "I do love him. Just not the way the newspapers say I do." That evening, a city council candidate used Delaney's story in a campaign speech about moral decay in modern society. The video clip played on 3 news channels and sparked trending hashtags. #FakeMarriage, #BillionaireBride, #ContractWife. Hale found Delaney on the rooftop, staring out at the city lights. The autumn wind whipped her hair around her face. "My legal team can handle this," he said. "We'll issue statements, threaten lawsuits, control the narrative." "No. Delaney, they're destroying your reputation." "My reputation belongs to me. I'll handle it myself." "You don't understand how these things work. The media cycle, public opinion, damage control. I understand perfectly." She turned to face him, her eyes bright with determination. "I understand that you want to protect me. But I also understand that some fights you have to face alone." Hale's jaw tightened. He was accustomed to solving problems with money, influence, and well-placed phone calls. Watching someone he cared about choose the difficult path over his offered solutions felt like being asked to stand still during an earthquake. "Let me help you." "You are helping me. By letting me handle this my way." The next morning, Delaney called a press conference. Not at a hotel or corporate office, but at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem. She chose the location deliberately, a place dedicated to truth-telling and historical preservation. She wore a simple navy dress and carried no notes. The room filled with reporters, bloggers, and curious onlookers. Camera flashes popped like strobe lights. At the back of the room, barely visible, Hale stood with his arms crossed and his heart in his throat. Delaney approached the podium with steady steps. She looked directly into the cameras, her voice clear and strong. "My name is Delaney Rhodes Carmichael. 6 months ago, I signed a marriage contract with a man I'd never met. The newspapers are calling me a gold digger. They're not entirely wrong." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several reporters leaned forward. "I married for financial security. For my mother's medical bills, for my student loans, for the chance to start something meaningful without drowning in debt first. I married because someone offered me peace in exchange for performance." She paused, letting the words settle. "But here's what the contract didn't account for. I fell in love. Not with money or status or security. I fell in love with a man who's learning how to be human. And I decided to rewrite the script." The room went completely silent. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness or your understanding. I'm telling you my truth. I made choices based on fear and need. But I'm staying based on love and choice. The contract ends next month. I'm not going anywhere." She stepped away from the podium and walked out through the crowd. No questions, no follow-up statements, no handlers guiding her exit. At the back of the room, Hale watched her leave. His chest felt cracked open, his carefully constructed walls reduced to rubble. She'd stood alone and spoken her truth, asking nothing from him but the space to be honest. For the first time in his adult life, he understood what courage actually looked like. 6 months and 2 days after signing the contract, Delaney stood in Hale's penthouse wearing one of his white dress shirts and nothing else. She held a coffee mug in both hands, steam rising like incense between her fingers. Manhattan stretched beyond the windows, all glass and ambition and morning light. The contract had officially expired at midnight. She was legally free to leave, collect her final payment and return to New Orleans. Instead, she'd spent the night in his arms and woken up knowing exactly what she wanted. Hale emerged from the bedroom, hair rumpled, wearing yesterday's trousers and a cautious expression. They'd made love like people saying goodbye, tender and desperate and completely present. "I signed a lease," Delaney said without turning around. His face went carefully blank. "In New Orleans?" "Yes. A little apartment near the community center. Close to my mother, close to the girls I mentor." She sipped her coffee, letting him process. "I'm keeping my life there." "I see. But I'm staying here too. Sometimes. I want both. I choose both." She turned to face him, her eyes bright with certainty. "I want to spend summers in New Orleans and winters in New York. I want to run my nonprofit from both cities. I want to love you without losing myself." Hale crossed the room in 3 strides. He pulled a small velvet box from his pants pocket and placed it on the marble counter between them. "Open it." Inside, nestled in silk, was a brass key. Old-fashioned, ornate, warm to the touch. "The building across the street," he said. 15 floors, perfect for non-profit headquarters. Fully paid, no mortgage, no strings. The deed has only your name on it. Delaney's eyes filled with tears. "Hale? I didn't expect to love you," he continued, his voice rough with emotion. "I calculated everything except the possibility that you'd matter more than the merger, more than my father's approval, more than anything I thought I wanted." She set down her coffee and stepped into his arms. "You're the most infuriating billionaire I've ever loved." He smiled, the expression transforming his entire face. "And you're the most priceless merger I've ever signed." She kissed him hard, tasting forever and coffee and the promise of complicated, beautiful mornings. When they broke apart, she picked up the brass key and pressed it against her heart. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we write our own contract. No lawyers, no expiration date, no fine print. Just us figuring it out as we go." Outside, the city hummed with 8 million stories of love and loss and second chances. Inside, 2 people who'd started as strangers began the work of building something real. Between a love that endures through time and one served on a golden platter, most folks would pick the sparkle. But not her. She chose the hard road, the one where peace didn't come wrapped in ribbon, but earned in silence. Where love wasn't a transaction but a daily decision to show up, flaws and all. He didn't need a wife. He needed a merger. She didn't need a man. She needed a moment to breathe. And somewhere between contracts and mango slices, between payout and presents, they built something no one could buy. Something that couldn't be negotiated or leveraged or calculated on a spreadsheet. Because love, real love, doesn't arrive on schedule. It chooses its own time, its own terms, its own complicated, beautiful way of landing. And if you're lucky, if you're brave enough to rewrite the script when it matters most, it lets you stay. Not because you signed a contract, but because you chose each other, eyes wide open, hearts fully invested in the glorious uncertainty of what comes next. And if this story stirred something in you, even just a flicker, I'd love to have you stick around. This is just the beginning. On this channel we tell stories that move slow, hit deep, and leave a mark. So if you believe love can grow in unexpected places, if you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or unseen, then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment below, and share this story with someone who still believes in real connection. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care of your heart.